All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting episode of Essential Essence 20. Join me as we look at the features, focuses, powers, and perks of the Essence20 system to help you get the most out of your choices. Quick reminder, if you do enjoy this stuff, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon to turn notifications on. All those things are super important. And as a heads up, I'm very much under the weather right now, so if I seem less than enthusiastic, that is why. But I didn't want to go a full 2 weeks without giving you guys an episode. So with that being said, let's talk about the Manipulator. So last video we talked about the Analyst, which again, as I mentioned before, the Analyst is kind of a unique class as far as tabletop RPGs are concerned. In the idea that I can't go, oh, this is the rogue of Essence20, or this is the fighter of Essence20. It's not really that. It's a very much a controller style class that interacts a lot with unique aspects of the Essence20 system. So because of how the Transformers RPG works, unlike the Power Rangers RPG, where most of your customization is going to come from the various perks that you can choose, your grid perks, your general perks, things like that. One of the ways you customize your character in Transformers is you pick a focus, basically as a subclass. The focus we're going to be looking at today is a Manipulator. It's the first analyst focus you can choose, and it's the first one listed in the core book, and it leans very heavily into the control aspects of the analyst. Now, one thing I do have to say, and this is going to be true of how we look at every single subclass. I mentioned when we were doing the analyst that there's a thing that I call a core perk or a core feature for each one of these classes. And the reason I classify that is that's the thing that's really going to define a character that uses this role. And most of the other perks that you get with the role will somehow interact with that, and that's generally going to be one of the things that is going to be part of your decision process every single time you use this class. For a subclass to work well, it needs to somehow be able to synergize with the core perk or the core feature of the baseline role. Because otherwise, instead of having a class and a subclass, you basically have a class and then kind of a pseudo dual class that fights against it. And we saw this in my D&D Deep Dive series. Every so often I would highlight a subclass where we go, it fights against the base class, and that makes both of them weaker. So that'll be one of the things that I focus on a lot in Essential Essence20, specifically for G.I. Joe and Transformers, is does the subclass synergize with the core perk of the main class? To give you a reminder what that core perk is, the Analyst's core perk is Analyze Target. Basically, as a standard action, you make it an alertness skill test against willpower cleverness. And on a success, you learn a valuable piece of information about your choice about them. Which in and of itself doesn't sound that amazing, but as you level up, and even right at level 1, you get other things, like Informed Accuracy gives you an upshift for each time you've analyzed a target. And then as you go further, you start getting more and more benefits to using Analyze, whether they help you or they help the rest of your team. But it does mean that your standard action, one of the biggest choices you're going to have is, do I want to use Analyze Target, or do I want to attack or do something else with my standard action? And as I've mentioned many times before, a good game design gives you choices, bad game design gives you right answers. So if there's an ability that is just always a worse choice to make than Analyze built into the Manipulator, then that's going to be bad, and we don't want to do that. So that being said, what exactly does the manipulator do, and how does it interact with the analyst as a whole? Well, let's look into it. At first level, you get a couple things. First, essence score increases. One of your essence score increases comes from your subclass. So for the manipulator, you increase your social essence score by 1, and then you get to increase it again at a later level. If you'd like to know which level that is, I do this intentionally. I will leave out certain things because I never want someone to be able to use one of my videos to just avoid buying the book. So if you want to know the specifics of where you get those increases, pick up the book. It's a great book. But also at first level, you get Diversion. Roll a deception, intimidation, or persuasion skill test against a target's willpower or cleverness as a standard action. On a success, if they attack you on your next turn, they suffer a snag. If they don't attack you, your allies gain an edge on attacks that target them. It lasts until the end of the next round. So the first thing that we're doing, and in general, the first ability that you get from your subclass is going to basically define the rest of them. It may not be like the core perk where everything else interacts with that. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But that first ability on a well-written subclass is going to define the subclass. You're going to get an idea, okay, this is what I'm going to be focusing on. And the first thing that we see here with this diversion of ability, damn, is this is a control-focused class. And the interesting thing about this, again, when we're thinking about, you need to use your standard action for this. So now you have 3 different choices when you are playing this character right at first level for your standard action. You have or technically 4, but you have your attack. Most characters in combat, at least, and this is a combat ability, most characters are going to want to use their standard action to attack or use some sort of offensive ability. So that's one thing that you have to kind of decide, is that worth it or not? The second choice you have is the core perk from the analyst, Analyze to the Target, which again, in addition to making it easier for you to hit the enemy with the upshifts you get from Informed Accuracy, as you level up, there's also a bunch of other things that you can use Analyze Target to just give you benefits for. And up until 7th level, those both require your standard action. And then the final one is Diversion. And Diversion is a little bit, I don't want to say confusing. I can't think of the word I want to use. But you might read it and think, oh, this is a defensive ability to make me harder to hit. And while technically, yes, that is true to a point, if they try to attack you on your next turn, they suffer a snag. And snag, if you're unfamiliar, is basically on your skill test, you roll the d20 twice and take the lower of the 2 rolls. It's effectively disadvantaged from 5th edition. It would seem like being able to impose disadvantage on an enemy whenever they attack you, that's a really useful thing. Which it is in a lot of different situations. However, what is an even better benefit from this is if they don't attack you, your allies get an edge on attacks that target them. That is, all of your allies now have an edge on attacking them. This is a really, really useful thing. And so one of the most useful ways to use a skill like Diversion is to find a way to use Diversion on a character that can't actually attack you. This was a really common thing that in 4th edition, if you played a sword mage, it was a really, really common thing to do when playing a sword mage. A sword mage was a defender, so they were meant to be a tank-style character. But All defenders in 4th edition got a chance to mark enemies, and the way marking worked effectively was, if they attacked anyone other than you, they had a detriment to their attack roll. I think they took a -2 to their attack roll. So it was an incentive to attack you, and different classes had different things that would add on to that. For the sword mage, when you marked a character, if they attacked someone other than you, they still got the disadvantage, or the lowered attack roll. If they still hit after that, all sword mages had a reaction ability they could use if the enemy attacks someone else. My personal favorite was, I think it was called the Intercepting Sword Mage, which is basically, if I marked a target and then they attacked someone else and succeeded on the attack, I could immediately teleport over to them and hit them with a basic attack. So a really, really common tactic for sword mages was you would intentionally mark someone that couldn't attack you. So bare minimum, you were making it more difficult for them to hit whoever it was that they were attacking. And then if they did succeed on that, where you were just getting a free attack off of that, which was very, very useful. The same thing can be said about diversion. If you can find a way to make it that you can use diversion on a target that can actually hit you, which could be as simple as, stepping out of cover, going and then getting behind something that provides full cover, or something like that, where it effectively breaks line of sight. They physically do not have the ability to attack you. Or choosing to use diversion on a melee-based character who is already engaged with another one of your allies. It means that as long as that target doesn't attack you on their next turn, everybody gets an edge. Everyone gets advantage on all of their attack rolls against this character, and it lasts until the end of the next round. So that's the other thing that you want to look at when you're doing this is, and that will actually go into the Cybertronian perk for the analyst. Their Cybertronian perk is basically, at the beginning of every round of combat after the first, you can spend an energon point to move a creature in the combat up or down one place in the initiative order. So, with something like this, with diversion, what you want to happen in a best case scenario is you would like you to go first, and then the person that you used diversion on basically to go after you. Because what that means is it lasts until the end of the next round, not the end of your next turn or something. So if this person goes directly after you and everybody else in the on your team goes after you as well, that means that as long as the person that you cast diversion on doesn't attack you, the entire team basically gets 2 rounds of advantage for the sacrifice of a single standard action. So being able to manipulate where you are and where the bad guy is in initiative can be really useful. And again, the Cybertronian perk is you can move a creature in the combat, not an ally or anything like that. It's just anyone that's basically in initiative, you can move them up or down one place. So combining that with diversion means that there are going to be situations where diversion is going to be massively useful. Because getting that edge means that, it doesn't help for critical hits, because critical hits don't rely on the D20. It does mean that your allies are going to be hitting significantly more often. And especially if you do have allies that have multiple attacks, 100% you want to be using Work the Numbers, which is the Cybertronian perk for the analyst. You want to be using that to make sure that the allies that do the most damage, have the most number of attacks, are going after this particular character. Because again, diversion doesn't activate for your allies until they don't attack you on their next turn. So it does rely on the enemy going. So this is another thing that really, really encourages the analyst in particular to understand the action economy and understand who goes when. And it does mean that you might want to avoid using diversion on the first turn. Maybe use analyze to target first. Is that what it's called? Yeah, analyze target. First on your first turn to kind of start setting things up, and then diversion on your second or third turn once you know what the initiative order is to kind of better be able to figure out which enemy to use it on and where it's going to give you your best kind of bang for your buck. Having them have a snag when they attack you is still a useful thing, and it specifically says on a success, if they attack you on their next turn, they suffer a snag. Not they suffer a snag on their first attack. It means any attacks that this target makes against you are going to be made with a snag. And that's another thing where your understanding of the action economy is going to be very, very useful. If they get like 4 attacks or something like that, having them waste those 4 attacks on you, especially if you do have a higher armor class or not armor class, a higher toughness or evasion, depending on how you're building your character, that might be a really, really great way to just remove a bunch of actions from the other team. So again, diversion, as simple as it sounds, is actually a really complex ability that if you use it correctly can massively swing the tide of a difficult battle in your favor. You just have to understand how you want to set it up. So yeah, moving on. At 3rd level, you get Holoprojector. 3rd level is a move action. You can create a holographic image within 20 feet of you until the end of your next turn. You get an edge on deception skill tests as long as the target of your skill test can see your holographic image, and you use it to create a believable but confusing situation per the GM's discretion. So Holoprojector is one of those abilities that requires you not only to think, but also to be a little bit creative. How can I create a situation where creating a holographic image, doesn't say what the holographic image is, it just says a holographic image, is going to create a believable but confusing situation. Maybe I'll create a holographic image of rocks falling, and I just go, ooh, watch out! Or I create a holographic image. Now, they don't say anything about sound, so it has to be entirely visual. But I make a holographic image of just the Decepticons' parents looking at them in just a disappointed manner. And they're like, but I don't understand why they're here. Mom, Dad, I'm trying to be a good Decepticon. And they just shake their head. Whatever you could come up with. Now, because this takes your move action, that means it can be used with diversion, because diversion can be a deception skill test. Doesn't have to be, but it can be a deception skill test. And with Holoprojector, effectively you can burn your move action to give you an edge on your diversion. And then, in addition to that, there's a lot of different situations where just having an edge on your deception checks is just really, really useful. Especially outside of combat. Like inside of combat, yeah, you can try and lie to your enemies. And again, with diversion specifically, that's a really, really good way to use a deception check. However, outside of combat, there's just so many different situations where being able to give yourself advantage on a deception check is really, really useful. Like just being able to instantly give yourself advantage, or edge in this case, as long as you can come up with a reason why it would be helpful, is just really, really good. And there's nothing in this, like one of the things I've told players many times when playing D&D 5th edition. Something that a lot of DMs absolutely despise is the guidance cantrip. Guidance cantrip is a very simple cantrip. It is a touch-based spell, and it's got verbal and somatic components. And basically, what it does is you touch a person, and you get divine guidance for them that lets them add a D4 to their next roll. Any kind of roll they're going to make, you can add a D4 to it. Takes your action to do it, but it's a remarkably useful thing. And one of the things that a lot of DMs despise is what's called guidance spamming, where literally every single time somebody makes any kind of check whatsoever, the cleric or whoever has guidance will go, "Guidance!" and just scream it. Every single time. It's like, sure, why don't you make me a dexterity stealth check? Guidance! With guidance. They're trying to negotiate a plan. It's like, ooh, why don't you make me a persuasion check? Guidance! And a lot of DMs hate it because, first of all, it messes with the flow of the game in general. And second of all, it just feels really cheap that if you have a cleric in your party and someone that has access to the guidance spell, basically every single roll you get to add a D4 to it, which in D&D 5th edition, a +4 to a roll is a really big deal. And even just a +1 can be a really big deal. So it just gets really annoying. One of the things that I use to prevent guidance spamming is, like, the players are negotiating a better price for a thing. And I go, okay, why don't you make me a charisma persuasion check? And then the guy goes, guidance! I go, let me just understand what it is that you're saying. So your friend is interacting with this person's trying to make a negotiation to get a better price for you. And your solution to it is to put your hand on him and go, "Dear God, please help my friend swindle this person." That's what you want to do right now. Well, that's not what I'm doing. That's exactly what you're doing. That's what it is. You are casting a spell with verbal and somatic components directly in front of the person that you're trying to persuade. My favorite one was people would do like a deception check, and I go, really? So you want to put your hand on him and say, "Dear God, please help my friend lie to this person"? They go, I guess. I go, okay. They'll roll like a 23, and I go, unfortunately, that's not enough. What? How can that be possible? You literally just said we're lying. You would have had to get like a 40 to convince him at that point. But that's not fair. That's how it works. So the reason I'm talking about this, nothing in Holoprojector mentions anything about any action that you have to take aside from using your move action. But there's nothing in it that would, like the guidance spell, basically give away that you're casting a spell. You know, in a world with magic, anytime you cast a spell, unless you have something like subtle spell and you're a sorcerer, or you just have sorcery points from a feat, people are going to recognize that you're casting magic because magic is commonplace enough. In a Transformers game, yes, they're going to expect technology, but activating a hologram, especially a really good one, the entire purpose of the hologram is to look real. So something like this is not going to run into the same foibles that a guidance spell is going to get, where it's obvious that you are using something to deceive them. This, the entire purpose of it is to not be an obvious attempt to deceive someone. And the limiting factor for it is that aspect, and you use it to create a believable but confusing situation. You do have to come up with how this is going to confuse them. But as long as you can do that, this is a really good ability. And again, the combat aspect of it, if you really want that diversion to help, and again, diversion, despite the fact that you don't get to make an attack when you're using diversion, the fact that all of your allies might be able to get at least one attack with advantage, possibly 2, depending on where they are in the initiative and where you are in the initiative, is worth burning a move and a standard action. So, yeah. And again, when you're not using these things, you can also be using Analyze Target, or again, just making attacks. So, moving on. At 6th level, you get In My Sights. 6th level, when you use the aim action, instead of gaining an upshift on your attack, you can announce to the target you're aiming at them. You suffer a downshift on your attack equal to the number of free actions you spent aiming, maximum 3, because that's all aiming can do. That's the limit of aiming. But your allies gain that amount of upshifts on their attacks or the benefits of pinpoint. This is where things start getting interesting. Now, in order for you to use In My Sights, you have to make a ranged attack that uses the targeting skill. That is built into the aim skill. The way the aim skill works is you use a number of free actions, up to 3, before you make the attack, and you get an upshift 1 for each one of those free actions. That's really, really good. And so what that means is In My Sights, as much as it's talking about free actions, it means that this is another thing that takes your standard action, because you have to use the attack action with a ranged targeting weapon in order to be able to use aim. But when you use it, this is really, really good. As I've mentioned before, providing upshifts in general is really, really nice. The fact that all of your allies get these upshifts is really, really phenomenal, because you are basically trading 3 free actions to get an upshift of 3 on, if you have a 4-person party, that's 9 upshifts for 3 free actions. And you might be wasting your targeting shot because you have to do a downshift. But again, the benefit of In My Sights is not to make the attack. It's to give your allies that boost. If you use Diversion last turn, and Diversion is still going because it goes until the end of the next round, In My Sights could allow you to kind of effectively double up, where they have an edge on all their attack rolls and an upshift of up to 3 on all their attack rolls as well. And again, it says your allies gain that amount of upshifts on their attacks or the benefits of pinpoint. If you've forgotten pinpoint basically allows you to ignore one thing that's increasing their toughness defense, 1 piece of armor. And is it just toughness? I have to look again real quick. Where are you? Pinpoint. You can choose here one of the target's armor upgrades. So yeah, it's just armor upgrades in general. So if there's an armor upgrade that, I don't know, gives them, makes anyone that attacks them with certain attacks have a snag or something, you can just ignore that. And so with a combination of pinpoint and aim, you could go, well, they have this really annoying armor upgrade that we haven't been able to deal with. You can use In My Sights, the first free action, you can get rid of that armor upgrade for your entire team. And then the other 2 ones, you can just give them upshifts too. Now, this does not say that your allies gain aim. So what that means is they get the upshifts from you, and then if they wanted to, they could use aim to get themselves even more upshifts. So this becomes a really, really big deal really, really quickly. And as I mentioned before, critical hits don't use the D20, they use your skill dice. And if you have a specialization in whatever skill you use for it attacking, the more dice you roll, the better a chance you have of getting a critical hit. Because as long as one of the dice other than the D2 rolls the maximum amount, even if you don't use that die as part of your attack roll, counts as a critical hit. So a combination of diversion and in my sights can be massive to giving your team a huge benefit, especially again if you do have people on your team that get a bunch of extra attacks or have other things that just allow them to attack multiple times or make multiple or just attack multiple times. So yeah, in my sights, again, it's another choice that you have to make about what you want to use your standard action for. But in one level, Analyze is going to move from a standard action to a move action. So at that point, you can use your move action to analyze and your standard action to aim, or standard action to make an attack roll, and then use free actions to use in my sights. Now, the other thing about this, I've mentioned before, the analyst already benefits a lot from having a high speed score so that they get a fair number of free actions. With the analyst, or with the manipulator subclass, free actions are almost essential because you start getting a lot of different things that use free actions. And especially with something like in my sights, that's really useful. And if you look at some of the other things, so things like target breakdown at 13th level from the analyst can work well within my sights, because target breakdown, you can spend a number of free actions equal to the number of times you've analyzed the target to give an ally upshifts on the attack against that target equal to that number. So that can stack within my sights. So again, you are just giving out upshifts. And again, when you look at the dice shift ladder, eventually you can get to automatic hit or automatic critical hit. So using a combination of in my sights and eventually target breakdown, which you don't get till 13th level, but using that can basically mean if you have enough free actions, your team is doing nothing but critical hitting. You need a lot of free actions to pull that off, and you need to make sure that you're using Analyze to target a fair amount. But once a few rounds have gone by and you've used Analyze Target a few times, in my sights and target breakdown turn into a really powerful combo. So yeah, moving on. At 10th level, you get Holographic Doubles. 10th level is a standard action. You can create a holographic copy of yourself adjacent to you. Once activated, you can spend a free action to create an additional holographic double until you run out of unoccupied adjacent spaces. Attack that targets you suffer a downshift for each holographic double. One holographic double disappears whenever you're unsuccessfully attacked and whenever you roll a skill test. Otherwise, they last until the end of the scene. Holographic doubles kind of turns into nonsense really quick. So first of all, standard action. So now we have, again, another choice of, do I want diversion as my standard action? Do I want to attack and use in my sights as standard action? Do I want to use holographic doubles for standard action? So the manipulator has a lot of different choices as far as where to use their standard actions. However, the nice thing about holographic doubles is as long as you keep the doubles up, this is a one-time in combat thing. So you activate holographic doubles, then you burn a bunch of free actions to effectively, as long as you're not in melee with someone and you don't have something preventing someone from standing there, like a wall, like you're not up against a wall, it effectively means you can have up to 8 holographic doubles as long as you burn enough free actions. Which means they would have 8 downshifts for as long as you have your full holographic double. And just to really quickly go back to the dice shift ladder, which I have to hold on a second while I find one of the dice shift ladders that are in here. Come on, dice shift ladder. There we go. So the dice shift ladder. If your enemy has a D8 in their attack, and they have 8 downshifts, that goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 would bring them to auto fumble. So if they have a D12, the highest number that they can have without getting upshifts, 8 downshifts would turn them into an auto fumble. 7 would turn them into an auto fail. And 6 would have them just rolling a single D20 no skill dice. So as long as you have at least 6 downshifts, no matter what they have, bare minimum they can't critical hit you because you need skill dice. Technically you only need 5 because they need to have at least a D4 to crit. That's a really, really big deal. And again, it's fueled by free actions. So again, the Manipulator, you probably want, despite the fact that you're going to be using social a ton, both from some of your analyst abilities and then obviously almost all your Manipulator abilities that require rolls use social skills. But having a really, really high speed essence score means you're going to have plenty of free actions to be able to increase your holographic doubles, to be able to use in my sights, to use target breakdown. Like there's so many different uses for your free action that as a Manipulator, it is by far your most valuable skill is just to have a really, really high speed essence. Invest them anywhere you want. You know, you can put your speed essence score into targeting if you want, because you're going to be getting some downshifts. So investing a little bit more in targeting means you're going to be able to make sometimes hit those attacks. You might want to put it for initiative, put a bunch of points into initiative so that you're always going first to get the most out of diversion. Like, you really, really want to put a large amount into your speed essences score. Wow, brain just went gone. Your speed essence score, because there's so many different things that you can use your free actions for. So yeah, and holographic doubles also helps out with diversion, because again, diversion, they would get a snag on attack against you. Holographic doubles gives you downshifts, so they're probably not going to hit you. But again, every time you're unsuccessfully attacked, you lose a double as they shoot the double instead of you. So you do still want to do your best to put yourself in situations where you're more difficult to get attacks or to have people attack, simply because you don't want to have to be wasting all of your free actions on re-upping your holograms. And if it ever goes to 0, sorry, there is a bug and it's annoying me. If it ever goes to 0, then you have the issue of, well, now you have to burn another standard action to get your holograms back. So being careful to make sure that you have enough holograms that if you do get kind of focused fired, that you're not going to lose all of them. Otherwise, it may not, like at the beginning of combat, using your first standard action to get holographic doubles is probably one of the better choices you can make. The longer you stay in combat, the less beneficial burning a standard action to give yourself holographic doubles is going to be, because they're just not going to last as long. And it'll really depend on how often you're getting to target and things like that. But again, holographic doubles, along with a bunch of free actions, makes you nearly untouchable, especially if, again, you have a really high speed score. That means your evasion defense is going to be really high as well. So, yeah. Moving on. At 17th level, you get Electro Disruptor. You can use a communication device or limited communication kit to hack a bot's brain. It's a standard action outside of combat. Roll a technology skill test against the willpower or cleverness of a creature within range of the communication device. And they give an example of the range. Again, if you want to know the specifics of it, go pick up the book. I highly recommend it. It's a great book. That you can see either through surveillance equipment or with your own sensors. On a success, the target becomes mesmerized by you or an ally of your choice that they can see for the remainder of the scene. So first things first, we have to define what mesmerized is. It's the charm condition from D&D 5th edition. Basically, they consider you a trusted friend, but they're not mind controlled by you. Basics of the mesmerized condition. There are so many different uses for this. First of all, this is a completely non-combat ability. You can't use this in combat, but because you can use it within a certain distance as long as you can see them, and you can use surveillance equipment to see them, there are a lot of different things you can do. As a manipulator, you could be the recon team, effectively, where you're perched up, probably with a ranger sniper next to you, where you're observing everything, and your allies are trying to infiltrate a base, and you can just pick pick the leader of the base is trying to interrogate your in disguise Autobot friends, and just make them think that they're best buddies and get them into the base really, really easy. If you're dealing with someone and you need things to work well before you get right up to them, because this would be an ability, because you are hacking, you have to use a communication device or a limited communication kit to hack the bot's brain. This is going to run into the same issue with guidance that I talked about, is you can't do this secretly. So it would need to be something that you do before you get close enough to see them. But as soon as you succeed, you kind of step out and go, "Hey, buddy, how you doing?" And they're like, ooh. Because it does specifically say, on a success, the target becomes mesmerized by you or an ally of your choice that they can see. So you can get them mesmerized by you, and they don't need to be able to see you. But because of how they worded this, it says the target becomes mesmerized by you or an ally of your choice that they can see. And that they can see modifies ally of your choice, not the entire sentence, because of that or thing there. If it was something that they had to be able to see you as well, it'd be, on a success, the target becomes mesmerized probably by someone that can see either you or an ally, but they'd have to put that before the or. So you can just, before they can see you, get them mesmerized by you and then walk in, "Hey, buddy, how you doing?" Or, again, you're doing recon, you're way off far, you find the dude that they're having problem with, you're like, "Okay, that dude, he's now your best buddy." And you just go, and now you're best friends. Like, again, for infiltration and anything like that, like, there's so many fun things you could do with Electro Disruptor. And again, it's something that is uniquely Transformers. There isn't a spell like this in D&D 5th edition where you could be 1,000 feet away and basically use binoculars to charm someone into being best friends with your ally. Most charm spells make them best friends with you. And so it's such a uniquely Transformers the thing. And it's so cool. There's so many different situations where that could be very, very useful. So yeah. Moving on. At 20th level, you get Vanish. 20th level, you can turn invisible as a move action. This lasts until the end of the scene. You successfully attack a target an enemy successfully attacks you, or you end the effect as a free action. So Vanish is another thing that's just, when you combine it with things like Diversion. So first of all, Vanish and Diversion is a fantastic ability because it only ends if you successfully attack a target. Diversion is not an attack. An enemy successfully attacks you, even if they somehow figure out where you are and they make an attack. They have to make a successful attack against you. Or you end the effect as a free action. This lasts until the end of the scene. And it's a move action. Now, by 20th level, your Analyze is now a free action. So you can use your move action to do Holoprojector if you want to get that benefit for Diversion. But if your goal of using Diversion is to get all of your allies that edge on attacks, then Vanish plus Diversion is the ultimate combo, because they can't attack you if they can't see you. Nothing about Diversion specifically mentions that they have to be able to see you. You could just as simply be whispering in their ear or yelling something and they're like, who the hell is saying that? And it would work the exact same way from a role-playing perspective. So when you combine Vanish with Diversion, you basically can use that as kind of a 1-2 punch to constantly be giving your allies edges on attack rolls against enemies, which is really, really good. And the thing about Diversion is it doesn't end. It doesn't end when you. It's not like a concentration spell where if you use it on someone else, it ends. So in your first turn, move to Vanish, standard action Diversion on one person. Well, Diversion's not going to activate until that target attacks. And it's going to last until the end of the next round. When your turn comes up again, Diversion is still going to be active, however it worked. So you can choose a different target so that your allies have multiple targets they can focus on, or you can just keep focusing on the same target and basically keep them in this perpetual Diversion loop. Or you can use In My Sights, and the cool thing about this is Vanish only disappears on a successful attack. So within My Sights, because you're giving yourself downshifts, that means you can use In My Sights to basically use your standard action, waste the roll so that you, or miss the attack, so you remain invisible, but you give all of your allies the upshifts or the pinpoint benefits. So as much as it sounds like, well, I'm wasting my attack for this, not really. As long as you have plenty of free actions, which by 20th level you probably will, you're not really going to have... it's not really going to be that big a deal if you don't get an attack when all of your allies are getting upshifts and other benefits from that. And now that your Analyze to target is a free action, you can also, like that first round, you Vanish Diversion to get your allies benefits, and then you burn a bunch of free actions because you can't use In My Sight without using your standard action to attack. So you burn a bunch of free actions to do target to analyze the target, and then if you have any more left, you do target breakdown to give to start giving your allies a bunch of upshifts. So yeah, really cool, useful ability. So moving on to final thoughts. Overall, the Analyst is already a very control-heavy character, but depending on how you build it, you might also be a relatively good attacker as well, damage-dealing style character. If you take the Manipulator, you really do have to kind of accept the fact that you're not really going to be doing a ton of damage in combat. Like, that's not what your most beneficial thing is ever going to be. But what you're going to be really, really good at is setting up all of your allies to get the slam dunk over and over and over again. A well-played manipulator can turn the tide of combat in 1 or 2 turns. You know, Vanish, Diversion, Analyze, and Target Breakdown already gives your allies a huge benefit. Put in my sights the next turn, and then maybe activate some holographic doubles just in case somebody sees where you are, and you are golden. And your allies are either auto hitting or auto critical hitting every single time, because you can just give them so many up shifts. And that's, again, depending on what their skill already is in. And that's another thing that it's in your best interest to understand the rest of the team. Because if you know, most of your attackers, especially by level 20, if most of your attacks are already at a D12, well, you only need, I think it's either 3 or 4 upshifts to get to auto critical. So combining in my sights with target breakdown and giving them 6 or 8, upshifts isn't really going to be that beneficial when at max they only ever need 4. And it also means that diversion starts becoming slightly less useful. When you can get them to auto hit or auto critical hit, diversion doesn't really matter because they can't use the edge on attacks. So understanding where your allies are, what kind of attack rolls they're making, and how many upshifts that they need is going to be the thing that makes your manipulator shine, and your allies will love you for it. But again, you are very rarely, if ever, going to be the one that is getting the final hit. It's just not what your role is. Yeah, it's incredibly essential member of a team if you're willing to take that support role. Otherwise, that is going to be all for me today. As always, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon to turn notifications on. All those things are super, super important in the comments down below. First of all, obviously, what do you think of the Manipulator? Is that a kind of class you would like to play, or do you not think you'd like the idea of just never being the person that's getting the killing blow? The other thing I want to hear from you guys, using Holoprojector, what is the zaniest situation that you would try to convince your GM that you were going to use to get Holoprojector to work? Let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, again, it's all for me today. I will see you guys in the next time. All right? Bye-bye.